JEFFJARRETT. That's Double J. Jeff Jarrett was on Talk Is Jericho this week. And look, I know what you're thinking. Don't you have a no Jeff Jarrett policy on your podcast? I do. I really do. But look, content was slow this week. Besides the insane McMahon stuff going on. On the podcast front, there's not a lot to write home about this week. The Bischoff Flair thing is squashed. Flair didn't say anything stupid this week. What else am I going to talk about? We got Jeff Jarrett on the Talk Is Jericho podcast talking about his role in AEW. Why is he in AEW? What brought him to AEW? What is his role backstage specifically? And how he ended up on TV? Check out this clip.
Did the Ric Flair last match, and then, out of the blue, just kind of started having conversations with the place you built, the house that Jericho built. But no, all kidding aside, and that was all on, I guess you could say, my day job, the director of business development. I'm very familiar with Universal Studios, obviously the live event business. I'm a third-generation promoter. I got some international projects that have been in the works, some for 3 or 4 or 5 years, others been going about 12 months. So those conversations took place. And then, like you said, funny thing on the way to the bread store. Hey, man, do you want to put on your boots again? And here we are.
Now, you mentioned coming in kind of for doing to business in the infrastructure part of AEW. So now we're working on building a whole infrastructure of our own, and you're a part of that. So what is some of the jobs that you are being asked to do here on that side of things?
It's a work in progress, and we just had this before we rolled tape. I was sharing with you about before I took the job, I went out and did my own due diligence, really on the brand, not so much, I'll call it the wrestling bubble or social media, but from television is very easy to see, but the live event industry, which that's one of the hats I'm wearing, is really, we'll call it house shows. It's not a 4-letter word around here, which I love. But, so the house show business, I'll call them the non-televised live events, I think is the proper terminology that I use when I'm talking to different promoters. I said, hey, these are non-televised. Oh, I got it. But that's it right up at the forefront.
I still don't like Jeff Jarrett. I don't know. He just rubs me the wrong way. There's just something about him. He just doesn't seem 100% genuine to me. And there's a little bit of a snake oil salesman to him to a certain extent. Ever since the whole thing stems from just other than he's kind of insufferable to listen to for 2 hours plus on a podcast. He kind of burnt me out on that. The way that he chewed out, and I know this was a while ago now, but he chewed out the producer on his podcast with Conrad on air. Just fucking ranted about his research and all that shit. And it's like, bro, fuck off. Who do you think you are? You know what I mean? But this was a fairly decent, easy to listen to podcast with Chris, talking about a lot of different things, the WWE stuff, the walkout and all that kind of shit. Some TNA stuff in there. But this, I've been curious about his role in AEW, specifically the backstage stuff. I don't agree with him being on air. I wouldn't have made that call. I think you could give that spotlight to somebody else, though I do think he's being used well. I think the pairing, Chris had said that Tony's idea, because Chris is very much in the loop, by the way. Chris is an EVP without the title. He really is. He's in the loop on everything that goes on in WWE or AEW. And, he had said that Tony's plan was to bring him in on air with Jay Lethal because he liked that pairing in Flair's last match. And he just liked that combination of Lethal and Jarrett together. I could do without Jeff Jarrett on my TV, quite frankly. I don't like the guy. He doesn't really entertain me all that much either. He's getting some good old school heat. I'll give him that. He's doing fine. Like he's working with younger talent. Not that Lethal's younger, but he's there with Satnam Singh. You know, that he put over Satnam pretty hard on Jericho's podcast too. He says he thinks Satnam has a lot of potential and that he's very, very high on Satnam. I haven't seen anything out of him that impresses me, but he's just a big gumpy guy, if you ask me. But Jarrett sees a lot of potential in him. So having Jarrett just there to work with him, to teach him the business, but also, you know, working matches with the Acclaimed and shit like that, like, you know, as long as he's being used in Tony Khan does a great job of that, you know, for all the talent that he uses poorly or doesn't use at all. A lot of the talent, when he does use them, he uses them very, very well. You know, he puts them in these situations. The young guys the older veterans are not on top, taking the spots and holding down the young guys. They're working with and or putting over the younger guys. He uses them very well in these spots. So though his use of Jarrett has not been bad, I just wouldn't have Jarrett on my TV, quite frankly. But him backstage, I've never been opposed to that. As much as I don't like Jarrett, and he rubs me the wrong way, I was actually pretty high on him coming into AEW to work backstage. I think he's been around the business for so long. He talked about on the podcast with Jericho that coming up under his dad, he did everything from putting the ring up to working the popcorn stand to, you know, every last bit of it. Driving talent. He had a story about driving Jerry Lawler one time and asking him not to eat in his car. And Lawler told Jarrett's dad, Jerry Jarrett, told him what happened, that, hey, your son's not letting me eat in his car. You know, you should probably put him in check a little bit. Jerry put Jeff in check. So he came up in the business, a part of the business. His grandma was a promoter. Jarrett knows the business in and out as a talent, as an in-ring wrestler, as a fucking promoter, as the booker, as a guy booking live events and getting deals in other countries. Jarrett is a savvy guy to the wrestling business and very important to have around. And this is one of the things Jericho mentioned too on the pod, is that AEW grew quicker than they probably even expected themselves to. And they do not have all of the massive amounts of employees backstage helping run the machine that WWE has. And that's why WWE is such a corporate conglomerate machine that is, you know, so far leaps and bounds above AEW, even though AEW, you know, they're not a TNA second. They're very close to a WWE in looks and money and budget and all that. But as far as like the infrastructure that they have, it's still very slim. And Jericho even let slip that a lot of the Jaguars people were doing, like the people working behind the scenes for the Jaguars were pulling double duty working for AEW as well. And so they're starting to bring in more people that can help out backstage and help grow this company, you know, and Jeff's definitely a good guy to facilitate that. You know, I can not like him all I want, but I respect his ability to facilitate some good shit behind the scenes for AEW. And he's back there, so he's specifically working on just live events and shit. He's working on getting them, you know, house shows, quote unquote. He says he pitches them as untelevised events, live events, but yeah, house shows. He's going to be doing more house shows. He said specifically in areas that are just frankly not big enough for Dynamite. So they're going to start spreading their wings to little smaller parts of the country, smaller towns, that kind of thing. I love it. I love to see that. You know, they don't need to be in the house show game. I don't think the wrestling model supports house shows anymore, but I think the idea of just getting guys work and getting exposure in new territories. And look, he said they're working on the TV territories too. Seattle's a new one for them. San Francisco's a new one for them. They're going to be going overseas to England, I believe, this year as well. They went into Canada. So they're a new company and they're still expanding. Jericho's helping to facilitate that. And he's, you know, I think he's probably going to do a great job. So he's a good guy to have, but get that fucking guy off my TV. And he's not the last outlaw. That was the Undertaker's gimmick. To the point, he stole the Undertaker's gimmick to the point where he's even got the big black fucking cap and the fucking black gloves and all. Fuck off with all that shit. Get off my TV. But welcome aboard as far as backstage stuff. JEFF, JARRETT. That's good old Double J, Jeff Jarrett. Let me tell you something, brother. You can check out full episodes each and every Sunday right here on this channel, dude. Don't forget to like, don't forget to subscribe, and don't forget to take your vitamins and say your prayers, brother.